is my biggest fear for today. It's my one job, and I thought I need to keep it recorded.
I understand. Sister Ann's jumping on. She wanted to make sure her PowerPoint worked.
Great, and I wanted to find their Sister Ann.
Oh, you're on mute, Ann.
Hey, now can you hear me?
You want to practice real quick to see if it pops up?
Yeah. Let me just do, I guess I do
Share
that.
screen. At the bottom of the share screen.
Host disabled participant screen sharing.
Oh, hold on. I am going to make you a co-host right now.
Okay.
I just made you a co-host.
Okay, perfect. Oh, control. It just keeps coming up.
It
Can
came
you-
up. It popped up.
But you see the side view, don't you?
I do see it. Can you try from beginning?
Or if you go down to the bottom, if you look, you know, oh, okay. Oh, there we
There you
go.
go. That's it.
That's it? Okay.
Yeah.
So how are you?
I am doing well. I'm so excited to try to assist you today. And, you know, we'll see how it works. I can also monitor the chat if there's any questions. I'm not sure, you know, we have.
Now, I do see notes on there. Do you see that? Notes on there on the right?
And no notes.
Yeah, I see that. I'm not sure that's full screen.
Can you
What
go
are you
back-
seeing full screen?
No, can you go back to where you were, Sister Ann? I think I can explain how else you need to get to full screen.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to
Okay.
stop share.
And then if you pull up the presentation again,
Okay, it's in the background now.
You want her to share screen, right?
yeah, share the screen. And then I'm going to see if we can get to where we can have the full slide.
It says too quickly.
Okay, it's working.
Okay. Now I'm trying to see how we can get back to where you originally started. So we don't want to show slides. I'm trying to get
Maybe
back.
go. Maybe. Yeah, there
Okay,
you go.
yes. Now, if you look into the right-hand corner where, you know, you can make it larger, look towards the negative sign there, and you'll see like a little, looks like a basketball hoop. Just keep going. You see like a little, trying to see, no, leave that. But if you keep going to the left, go to the left of that. Oh,
Okay.
now go to the right. Click on that. And you should get full slide if you click on that button.
I have a full slide, but what about y'all?
No, double click it.
Let me go to for beginning. These two.
I don't know what that is.
And it may be because you're on the slideshow. I wonder if you go back to home up at the top,
Okay.
just click that. And then I'm wondering if you click that button.
The
What if
button at
I-
the bottom.
What if I go view?
Yeah. No, try slideshow again. In the red. In the red. Keep going over to the right.
Oh Lord, now I lost everything.
You want me to do it?
And I'm more than happy I have the presentation.
Oh, why don't you just do it?
Why don't you do it?
Okay, so what I'll plan to do is.
I have mine right in front of me, so.
Once we begin, I'll pull it up. I'll share my screen. I won't be able to monitor the chat box while you're speaking, but then when we're finished, we can see if there's any questions there. And then you can just tell me, you can just go next slide.
Okay.
And then that'll be, okay. So I'll wait for a few minutes because see who else is going to join us. Then
'Cause we have two
fingers
people here.
crossed, I'll share. I practiced earlier to make sure I do this right.
You can't do it any worse than I would do it, believe me. So I mean, how did it go? I wasn't able to be there last night for a number of reasons. How did it go?
I wasn't either. I was doing some other work, but I heard the blessing of the garden. It had been taped, but that went, they said was very
That was
nice.
very nice. Very
Yeah.
nice.
The video of that Brother Paul and the young brother Nish did this morning, that was wonderful.
Yes. And when all the students were singing, I was like, oh, it was really
know.
nice. Well, and we have we have a total of 3 other guests. And so let's just wait a minute or two.
Okay.
I am recording this.
Okay.
And somehow if you lose me, I will be back. Just continue.
Okay.
Once in a while, we've been having a few storms here in Austin, but keeping fingers crossed it'll be okay.
Well, there can't be more storms than we have in here. I think we should be ducks.
Oh my goodness. So, well, what we'll do then is I'm going to share my screen. So, and then we will have you begin.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to make you the spotlight, Sister Anne, so everyone can see you.
Okay.
And I'm going to share the screen. Just 1 moment. Let me put this up.
Ready?
Okay, just 1 minute. All right, so share screen. All right, we can start.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm not sure well, look, old friends, Diane and Elaine have joined us. Welcome. Welcome to everybody this afternoon. We began this breakout session talking about or sharing about one of the women of Holy Cross, Leo Katie Gascoigne. I was touched this morning as Brother Tom used the words "You are for Holy Cross" in his session and spoke about Mother Mary. And this morning this afternoon, we're gonna look at Mother Mary from a different aspect. What would she, as a woman of Holy Cross, living in the 1800s, say to us, women of the 21st century? And one of her lines that we don't know very well is a prayer that I would like to use. And it's a line that goes, she said it to her last remaining sisters right before she died in 1900. What would you do again? And she said, I would do everything, the same things, all over again. And what a wonderful prayer for a woman of faith that truly knew the Paschal mystery in a very special way. Mother Mary of the Seven Dolors, for all of the women of Holy Cross, is a woman of hope and compassion. And if you move us to, first of all, let me just, if everybody can we go back? I'm sorry. The initial symbol for the family of Holy Cross was the symbol that Father Morrow had designed. And it's a symbol that we use more today than we've used over the years. But I'd like to point out 2 things. First, the 3 hearts, the heart of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, and the fact that in French history and French theology, the hearts of a the heart of a holy person was very, very special. And so for Father Morrow, and when Father Morrow appointed Mother Mary of the Seven Dolors, or Leo Katie at that point, the Heart of Mary was very much on Father Morrow's mind. And then finally, under the three hearts, the JMJ, which is the Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. A real insight into the fact that Father Morrow expected us, or visioned for us, his dream was that of a family around the Holy Family, that of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. So for him, his vision was realized when he met Leo Katie Gascoigne. And as women of Holy Cross look at her today, we look at her as that woman of faith, hope, and compassion. I'm sorry, now you can do the next screen. Leo Katie was born in 1818, and as Tom said this morning, she was one of the first members of the family of Holy Cross who was truly educated. We know that she could read and write. We know that she graduated from high school and actually went to what in French, for France in the 18 and 1900s, was a finishing school, so that in her father's mind, she could come home and run his house because her mother had already died. But more especially, that she would be able to find a good husband and provide a perfect home. And so that's why she was sent to the finishing school. If Mr. Gascoigne had any thoughts of his daughter becoming a religious, he would have immediately looked to the Ursuline sisters, because the Ursuline sisters, Leo Katie's aunt, his sister-in-law, was an Ursuline sister. And after Mrs. Gascoigne died, the Ursuline sisters became very much a part of the Gascoigne home. In 1840, Leo Katie is already taking care of the linens in the church. He's belonging to organizations in the church. But more especially, she has the opportunity to travel to her uncle's town. Her uncle was the mayor, to attend a mission being given by a new group of priests under the leadership of Basil Moreau. And that priest's name was Father Drouel. Father Drouel certainly impacted Leo Katie Gascoigne in her decision to at least begin the conversation with her father concerning religious life. It was a big decision for her, in that he had sent her to school so that she could run a house, take care of her brothers and sisters. So it took her a long time, about 3 years, before she actually got up the courage to say to her father, well, during the mission time, that she wanted to be a religious. Next slide. In 1841, she convinces her father, can I have, yeah. In 1841, she convinces her father to take her to Le Mans to make a retreat at the Good Shepherd Monastery. Now, the Good Shepherd Monastery is where, outside of the Good Shepherd Monastery, is where Leo Katie actually meets Father Moreau. And his first impression was of Leo Katie was, this is the woman I've been waiting for. This is the woman I need to work with me in forming the feminine side of the family of Holy Cross. The picture up there was actually taken probably in 2017 when we were at the home. The home is privately owned today. It's still a working form, and you see all of the women standing outside. The women are always, the women of Holy Cross who make the international session are always trying to convince the family to let us inside the house. They let us outside the house. They let us play with all of the farm animals, but we never get invited in. But the middle room on the second floor is actually the room where Leo Katie was born. So Morrow meets Leo Katie. He encourages her to make an 8-day retreat. The person who leads the retreat is the superior of the sisters there. Her name is Sister Mary Dositheus. And 8 days later, on July 2nd, as she finishes the retreat, Father Morrow says that very special line, the line that was used all morning long: you are for Holy Cross. You will go to Holy Cross. Now, that line is so special because you will go to Holy Cross didn't mean anything to Mother Mary of the Seven, to Leo Katie Gascoigne. Nothing had been formed yet. There was a small group of brothers. There was a small group of priests. And now this man who she met 8 days ago is telling her, you will come to Holy Cross. So as we say all the time, she walks into the unknown. And I think for we who are part of the family of Holy Cross, to walk into the unknown becomes more and more commonplace. And she takes the risk of something that is yet to be born. She was a French woman, so she knew divine providence. In 17th and 18th France history, divine providence was alive and well as it is today. And so we see in Leo Katie from 1841 until the time she dies, and next slide, please, untiring service to Holy Cross. And when I say untiring, we often sit back as we do the research. I've often been in France with Brother Joel Gialanza and our own archivist, Sister Jacqueline. And when you see some of her writings, you know that Morrow depended upon her. He had many ideas, but he needed someone to make it happen. And she was the person who made it happen. One of the things that we know clearly was that she valued family and faith. We have some of the letters that she wrote both to her father and to her sister. And they are just profound in continuing to invite her father to pray with her and walk with her and encourage her younger sister and 2 brothers to be people of faith. We know that for Morrow, the fact that she had an education, but more especially that there was a social grace about Leo Katie, was something that attracted him to her, to know that she was what he wanted Holy Cross women to be. Above and beyond, she was not afraid of hard work. In the initial days, they did everything. The washing, and we complain when the washing machine doesn't work. They walk down to the river, and if you ever have the opportunity to be in Le Mans, from where they lived to get to the river, you walk down, I think it's about 35 stairs to get to the river, and that's fine going down. But then when all of that wet clothes is finished, you walk back up those stairs. And we've walked them a few times and said, wow, what a work to do, not only for themselves, but for the priests and brothers. Truly a team player. We see her with the young sisters that she's given to lead, that she looks for the qualities that are best in them. Always looking to Father Morrow, but giving him those little insights. Together, they allowed each other to be risk takers. And I put the picture of what the two of them built together. Those are in that bottom left-hand corner, the original buildings of Holy Cross. Today, we only own the church. Some of these buildings have been destroyed, but the front part and to the left, these are now beautiful, beautiful condominiums in the city of Le Mans. And so the Holy Cross priest owned this portion, and then the Jesuits, when they owned the building, built a rectory in front of this building. So some of the original is still owned by the family of Holy Cross. But when you think that in the 1800s, with very little resources, they built that truly because they believed in the power of education. Next slide, please. Thank you. The session is about what would she say to us today? And I use this quote often because I think for me, it captures everything that Mother Mary believes about the women of Holy Cross. Never underestimate the power of dreams and the influence of the human spirit. We are all the same in this notion. The potential for greatness lives within each of us. Mother Mary was given very little to work with, but it is amazing the young women that she sent off to America, which she sent to a small town in France, Pont-Valin. Pont-Valin is the first mission where Mother Mary actually, she herself sent women to. And today we still have one sister living in Pont-Valin. When her companion died about 5 years ago, I happened to be in France at the time. And as we were getting ready to close the coffin, the mayor of Pont-Valin gave me a piece of paper. And I said, "What is this?" And he said, "It's a petition to keep one Marianite in Pont-Valin because Mother Mary sent the sisters to Pont-Valin." So we still have Sister Bernadette still remains in Pont-Valin today. So what do I begin with, and what would she say to us? Next slide, please. I believe that she would first and foremost say to each of us, the women of Holy Cross and the men of Holy Cross, dedicate yourself to the cross. Know and believe in the Paschal mystery. And Mother Mary knew the Paschal mystery long before she met Father Moreau. She had lost her mother before she was 4. She became she had also lost a sister. And for her, the loss of her mother and her sister were very, very difficult for her. But in spite of it all, she saw in that there was life beyond. One of the many things that we see in her writings was to embrace the cross, to know that the cross is with you always, but more especially in the cross, we find hope. And so I have on my desk, we have a compilation of all of her writings. And almost in every one of her writings, the word cross appears on almost every page. And it's a testament to a woman who believed in that. I think it says to us today, especially right now as we embrace the cross of the pandemic, that there is light at the end of the tunnel. The next slide I'd like to share with you is that of embrace humility. One of Mother Mary's lines that we, for many, many years, laughed at as Marianites was, in many of her writings, she writes, "My daughters, I ask you to be as humble as dirt." And I remember one of our former superior generals, Sister Verda, saying, "I just don't like that quote." Well, in light of the environment today, we've kind of tried to flip that and say Mother Mary of the Seven Dolors was actually a visionary, in that I think what she was really calling us to was to embrace the earth and all that the earth holds for us, not only today, but in the future. And the real call and invitation in us in Holy Cross is to awaken in people that deep, deep sense of connectedness to the earth, to our global world. But what were some of the humble things that we saw Mother Mary doing time and time again? I've already talked about the washing of the clothes in the river, the mending of clothes. For 13 years, Mother Mary found herself living in Canada. Father Moreau had asked her to go, promising her that she would not be there for more than 2 years. And as she got on the boat to go, that was his last words to her: "You will be there only 2 years." She ended up being there 13 years. And we can all smile at something like that and know that we said yes to something. In one of my former lives, I said yes to being a consultant at Catholic Charities. And 4 years later, I said to the president of Catholic Charities, "I came for 3 months. Why am I still here?" I see people laughing, so you understand. One of the things that she writes on a small note is that preparing food for the priest and brothers was often a difficult task. And as one who is not the best cook in the world myself, I would say I understand Mother Mary. But I think what she says to us today is that to be willing to work behind the scenes, that sometimes the behind the scenes work gets things done in a way that we would not be able to accomplish them otherwise. And that's not to say always take the back seat, but to know that sometimes we can accomplish a lot more by just working behind the scenes. And in Holy Cross, truly, Mother Mary did that time and time again. Next slide. Obedience is a part of every way of life. Leo Katie's yes on August 2nd, 1841. And the August 2nd is not 8 days after. It was after she had a month of training. So she made the 8-day retreat. She finished on July 2nd. On August 2nd, and sometimes we say August 2nd, sometimes we say August 4th. She became a novice. But that yes is a yes that I compare very, very often to the Magnificat of Mary. That once again, she didn't know what she was saying yes to, but she launched into that with great eagerness and faith. And if we need anything in our world today, we need eagerness and faith. And I'd like just to stop there for a moment and ask each of us to think about the Magnificat moments in our own life when we say yes, not knowing what the future holds. And I'd like to use a little word from Father Morrow. It was written to Mother Mary in one of his letters. Our work here is the work of each and every one, and we are all individually and collectively responsible for it in the eyes of God and others. I think for Mother Mary and for Father Morrow, the building of Holy Cross was very, very much about collaboration. It was very much about what was needed then, but not being afraid to look into the future and not knowing what the future would hold. Recently, in meeting with some of our sisters, we moved 3 of our sisters to a different skilled care unit within the last month. And in the move, one of them said to me, "Ann, I thought Our Lady of Wisdom was going to be my last spot." And I said to her, "Sister Jules, we never know where our last spot's going to be, but let's give this one a try." And yesterday, in speaking to her, she said, "This is like starting all over again." So for someone at 92 to say this is like starting all over again gives me great hope. Next slide. Each of us is called to serve the poor. Just a little insight. The picture on the left is actually the entrance into the Little Woods, which is on the property at the Solitude. It is the area where Father Morrow wrote the Constitution. It's not a place where Mother Mary would have been very often because it was where the men were being trained. The Marianites, the Holy Cross men lost the Solitude in the auction, and the Marianites purchased the Solitude back and moved back in 1950. So we now consider that our mother house and still maintain those woods. And often when I am in France, I look at those trees and think for the founder and probably Mother Mary, not as much, but certainly did walk to those little woods and pray for, well, who are the poor? The vision that Morrow and Mother Mary had was one of making the world a better place. They didn't have to go looking for the poor. The poor were right there in the district we now call Holy Cross. But to every place where they sent young Holy Cross religious, they found the poor and encouraged all of Holy Cross to be with the poor. And often we have this conversation. While we don't always see our schools as being poor, there are always people, no matter how rich, that have our need. And so for each of us, we know the poor inside of us and find the poor inside of another individual. I think in being called to serve the poor, Mother Mary would say to us very clearly, do not be afraid to take a chance. So often where they sent people, it did not work out. And Mother Mary, in sending the sisters to Indiana and to Canada, and seeing both groups break away from the Marianites of Holy Cross, brought her great sorrow. And at the same time, I think in her heart, she knew that work needed to be done that could not be done with us being connected. But I think more especially, so often when we gather as the family of Holy Cross, but more especially as the women of Holy Cross, I envision Mother Mary smiling from heaven that today we are one. And as I shared in another presentation earlier, I think for the three women's groups, we go by other names, but we beat as one heart. And that is so very important to us today. Mother Mary also trusted that the people that were sent to be zealous, that the people that they encountered would see in them a zeal that she and Father Morrow tried to entrust to people around the globe. And if you had the opportunity to look at the little video that was shared earlier this morning on the works of the brothers, my thought was, look at the zeal. Look at the power of people impacting other people. And certainly the family of Holy Cross has impacted people around the world. But most especially, I think zeal is linked to service. And for Mother Mary and for Father Morrow, the zeal of serving the poor, but the idea of making the world a better place was always on their mind. Next slide, please. We move from serving the poor to be a person of joy. One of the things that Mother Mary spoke of often to her first novices was, no one wants to see a sad face. We do not need to look for sadness. This stained glass window is in the back of Holy Cross Church in Le Mans. And it commemorates the fact that in the early 1940s, the women of Holy Cross came together around Mother Mary of the Seven Dolors, who had been dead for over 45 years, to celebrate the fact that while we were three distinct congregations, we needed to be one in heart. And people always comment, well, if it was three different congregations, why are there 5 women in the picture? And the center picture is Mother Mary herself. The other 4 women are the 2 Marianite, one outgoing Marianite general and one incoming general for the Marianites of Holy Cross, and then the Sisters of the Holy Cross and the Sisters of Holy Cross. And I have to apologize to you. Earlier today, I wanted to look up each of their names because I often forget them, and I did not do that for you, but I will make that known later on. I would say that Mother Mary linked joy with hospitality. That for we who are the women of Holy Cross, to be a hospitable presence wherever we find ourselves, to make our homes available to the people of God, should not be taken lightly. And I see that so often when we gather as a family. In October of 2019, the 4 general councils gathered in, we gathered in Montreal. I was trying to think, where were we? We were in Montreal, and it was the first time that all 4 councils, every member was there. And it was a great, great opportunity for sharing not only who we were and where our congregations were, but more especially just for getting to know each other as priests, brothers, and sisters. And we stayed at a building that was owned by another congregation, but had a number of women religious there. And often the comment was made, "You seem to be so happy. You seem to be so happy." And I think for Father Morrow, for Mother Mary, that joy and that hospitality were key moments for them. And that they would ask us to be that as well. Next slide, please. Kindness is a value to be practiced daily. The picture there is actually a window in the chapel at Holy Angels in New Orleans. And once again, we see the heart, but also true to French tradition is that another way of depicting the heart was depicting the heart with a rose. And so in this window in the chapel at Holy Angels is this beautiful stained glass window with not the 3 hearts, but the 3 roses. And again, a French tradition that the heart and the rose are synonymous with each other. They are the hearts of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. But the roses speak of 3 different gifts. And it's the gift of tenderness, compassion, and fidelity. And in the research that we've done, the tenderness is the tenderness of de Jarier. The tenderness he had with each of the initial brothers who came to him as the Brothers of Holy Cross, but the tenderness that he saw in Father Morrow and entrusting his men to them. Compassion is the compassion that we saw in Mother Mary and the compassion she had for Father Morrow when he was abandoned by the priest and brothers. And literally, I say very humbly, the Marianites of Holy Cross humbly accept the wonderful, wonderful way in which Mother Mary and those original Marianites took care of Father Morrow when he was abandoned by the congregation, but more especially in those last few days of his dying. It was his 2 sisters and 3 Marianites that surrounded him and cared for him. And I would say we continue to see that compassion today. And finally, the fidelity that we see in the men of Holy Cross, but especially in Father Morrow and those initial men that followed him, that they were able to practice fidelity in a time when the church was falling apart. And each one of those hearts or roses is what we need to bring to our ministry today. Can we be tender, compassion, and find fidelity in and where God is calling us to today? I think our world is looking for that in a very special way. The next slide. Prayerfulness. is the foundation. For those of you who have made the international session or had the opportunity to visit Short, we always spend time visiting Our Lady of the Underground. Our Lady of the Underground is before Christianity. She is actually in a chapel under the church at Short. But it was to Our Lady of the Underground that Mother Mary was praying when our Constitution was accepted. And it is why we often make that pilgrimage. But we've learned that she got to know Our Lady of the Underground because it was a space that was revered by Father Moreau. And so we never, at least in my experience, we've never had a general chapter in France or an international session in France where we haven't found our way to Short to visit Our Lady of the Underground. And there again, for me, it speaks to our connectedness, not only to the people that we work and minister with, but our connectedness to those who have gone before us, long before Christianity, but more especially to the connectedness we will have when each of us knows the Paschal mystery in a new way. I mentioned the fact that Mother Mary often in her writings used the word the cross. The second word that I think she would have used or did use so often was that of nothing was accomplished without prayer. The 7 Dollar beads that are hers that we do have at the Solitude in France are truly well worn, and we see those black beads and sections actually turning brown because they are so well prayed. And I think for we as women today, we are called to be that prayerful example to know that nothing is accomplished without prayer. And finally, I'd like to finish with my last slide. The family of Holy Cross speaks so often about one hope and the work of resurrection. But these 4 lines speak clearly to me of what Holy Cross calls us to be today. To serve with zeal, to make God known, loved, and served, and thus save souls. That was the charge that Blessed Moreau, our founder, gave the family of Holy Cross. The Marianites would say, we're called to be a prophetic presence in an ever-changing world so that we resolutely stand with those who are excluded. And for the Sisters of the Holy Cross, compassion moves us to reflect on the signs of the times, discern the needs of God's people and our world, and respond as we are able. And finally, the Sisters of Holy Cross, the burning desire that sparks in the heart of each Holy Cross member the audacity to stake one's whole life on God is the same. And if we can each live by those 4 statements, we will be one hope for our world and be about the work of resurrection. So I invite questions, I invite comments. Diane, I have a question for you. What time is it for you? Maybe she's not, she's muted, so we can't hear her. Hey, Elaine. Questions?
Sorry, I was muted. Hi, Ann.
I'm having a hard time hearing.
Are there any questions? Do any of you have any questions for Sister Ann? You can either just speak out loud, you can put it in the chat box.
Ann,
Yes, Diane.
it is a quarter of 4 my time. It's not so far off. It's like 2 hours.
Okay. I was thinking it was in the middle of the night and I was feeling real
Oh.
sorry for you.
No. That's Bangladesh or Africa.
Okay. Yeah, five for Africa right now.
And Sister Elaine, were you going to say something?
Yes, please. And I think about Mother Mary very, very often. I carry her in my heart. And I can say that the pilgrimage went a long way in terms of deepening my appreciation of her. But I wonder now, in view of the statements that you just read, what would Mother Mary be expecting of us, this country, at this time?
My screen is going to be that blue. My hair is more blonde with the blue.
If anything, I think she would be expecting us to be a prophetic presence, to be out there, truly calling women and men to be a prophetic presence, to not be afraid to be countercultural, to not be afraid to speak for the poor, to encourage diversity, to encourage us to stand with people who are so often forgotten. That's where she and Father Morrow would be.
I think so too. Thank you. I think so too.
I have no questions, Anne, but I want to congratulate you. That was a beautiful, beautiful presentation.
Thank you.
And I think Mother Mary would want us to be signs of resurrection in this pandemic time where we see so many deaths. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I do believe so often during the pandemic when we were here in Covington and there were just a few of us here, I often thought, what do you want us to do? And I found myself making phone calls and writing notes and encouraging people, picking up the phone call and calling people that I would have never called before. But to keep in touch, to be united, to encourage people, to be that light in the darkness. So, you know, that candle that shines, because that's what she was in Canada. The one time she came to New Orleans, that's what she was. And that picture in the beginning is really the only real photograph that we have of her. And she had a fit that that the sisters in New Orleans wanted her to have her photograph taken. She thought that was unnecessary, but needless to say, the Southerners won over Mother Mary.
Are there any other questions or just thoughts or comments?
Hi, I'm Angie Ruiz. I work for the Marianites. They started the University of Holy Cross, and the vice president of mission integration and campus minister there. And I do want to just say what I learned something new every time. I was a Marianite many, many years ago, but I went on the international session, and every time Sister Ann gives a talk, I learned something new. But I do think what I've seen from the Marianites is we've had a lot of students, our college students are you know, middle to poor probably, and they all work and they lost their jobs in the pandemic, a lot of them. And so they're really struggling. And the Marianites really stepped up and helped a lot of our students. They've paid rent. They've, just, I mean, groceries. They've just helped pay tuition. And so, in a simple way to pay it forward, that the Marianites have helped so many of our students stay in school. And so just really grateful to them for stepping up in that way, because it meant a lot to these students, and in their letters, they're just so grateful that someone cared about them, someone believed in them. Many of them were women, some single moms, some, just people struggling. So we appreciate that the Marianites step forward in that way.
And Angie, the Marianites daily give thanks that you are our face at the college each and every day. Angie has been gift for us, and one of the very first things, we never expected to receive a stimulus check. And one of the very first time we got the first stimulus check, the leadership team said, we will never use a penny of that money for a Marianite. That will all be paid forward to God's people. And so it's with the stimulus money that we've been able to pay those rents and help people graduate. And it's our gift of saying we believe in the future. And we believe that people that are at Holy Cross today will carry the Marianite mission into the future. Just as Brother Tom shared this morning, I thought it was so very real that the laity will be, you will be standing on our shoulders, and we appreciate that.
Sister Diane.
When we first got the schedule and we saw all the possibilities and to make a choice, actually, I stopped on you, not on the topic, because I wanted to see how you work. But I am very grateful that all of these presentations are going to be kept and made available, because it's hard to choose among all of the offerings. I thought, gee, they should have just taken 2 and said, you can either go to this one or that one. When they have like 10 possibilities, it's hard to say, well, what am I going to not be part of? But I would say, as a sister of the Holy Cross, we had very, very little on Mother Mary of Dolors. And so I always appreciate hearing about her. You bring her so alive in your presentations. I got the copy from you of her writings. I've shared them here. One of the things that struck me, which you didn't say, and you should have, I would say 99% of her letters start out with, sisters, we want to remember in our prayers, Sister Stephen and Sister Ivan and Sister this one and Sister that one who've died. She starts out everyone with people who died. And then way at the end, she starts saying something that you always quote about what she's saying about faith or hope or about our values of Holy Cross. But she starts out with the list of the dead. And I think in these days of COVID, that's what most touches us, when the newspaper or people say, this person died. This is the story of that person, what they're contributing, what they've given, what they've shared, and that person has died. And Mother Mary personalized all of those people who were sisters, and because they were in different countries, they didn't necessarily even know each other. They were either from France or New Orleans or wherever they were, and people didn't know them, but they became sisters to one another during that announcement. And I thought she would say to us, don't forget the people who died, who gave their life through no choice of their own, that they did everything they could. And the other thing that impressed me about those letters were the ages of the people who died. They were young. They were 24 years old. They were postulants. They were novices. They were 31. there were so many very young sisters. And I thought, wow, to send these young people out on mission and to have to announce to their families that they've died. And under COVID at the beginning, it did seem like a lot of the elderly were dying. But now we're seeing a lot of youth and young adults and adults who are in full ministry in the practice of their professions. And they're also dying. And I think Mother Mary would say, don't forget any of these people who have died. And then you have really intelligent senators who say to Dr. Fauci, tell me, what's the number? Is it when we get down to 12, we can take off our masks? Can we take off our masks if only 400 people die? Can we take off our masks? And I think, you know, there are so many people in the world that that just drag down the spirit of joy and drag down the hope and drag down. And so when you say our ministry is to cheer each other up and to just keep going forward and being a support to whatever people need at that time, to just move forward. And so I think, yes, there's a lot that not just Mother Mary says, but you say. And I think everyone, all of us sisters are having an experience of the need to be one, to be holy in the midst of being crossed. And I really want to thank you, but I just hope that all 650 people who are signed up for this conference tunes you in and watches the presentation, not because of you, but because I think we need to know our roots. I think we need to know where we came from. And those saints are still our saints, and they're still pulling for Holy Cross to be resurrection. And I really want to thank you for your presentation and time you took to prepare it.
Thank you.
Are there any other thoughts from the audience, or Sister Ann, do you have some other information you would like to share?
Yes, I do. We are presently, because one of the things that the pandemic has forced us to do is to know that we don't know how much traveling people will be doing in the future. So we are truly researching what would it be like to have a virtual international session. So we could go to all of the places we go to during the international session, but that we would do it virtually. And I think this virtual session of the Holy Cross Institute gives us some fire in working a little bit harder, in that, Diane, you and I have been to the Institute many times. Usually there was about maybe 200, 250 people. And this morning they said 600. So to have that opportunity, and for 600 people in Holy Cross, to get to know the roots of the congregation. So it just puts a little bit more fire in me to say we need to work a little bit harder to make that happen. Not that we don't want people to come to Le Mans. That's not true. But as we all know, the reality is that travel will be harder and harder. But to have those opportunities to be in those places, I know Angie's been, I know Elaine's been, I know Diane's been. Eileen, did you make the international session? She didn't. Yeah. Just know all of you are welcome in Le Mans whenever we can get back to France. I would say to you to pray for the 17 Marianites that are in France today. France is still on what they call the 6 to 6, which means they can leave their house at 6 in the morning, and they have to be back in their house at 6 o'clock at night. And if they aren't, there is the possibility of being arrested. And we were speaking to someone in Pressinier yesterday, and she said 2 of their employees were stopped and came very close to being arrested because they thought it would be okay to stop and have a little glass of wine, and it was beyond 6 o'clock. So the 6 to 6 is very much alive in Europe.
Well, if there's no more other thoughts, I just wanted to thank all of you for joining us today, and a special thank you to Sister Ann
Thank you.
for your presentation and just kind of lifting us all up and giving us the hope that we hope we have, but some days we need it a little more than others.
Thank
So
you.
thank all of you. This, as Dr. Clark mentioned, this will be recorded and will be shared probably in the next week or so. I hope to see some of your smiling faces on some of the other presentations this weekend.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.